All right. Thank you, Michael. Well, good morning, everybody. I think it's morning for almost everybody on this call. And thank you all for attending. It's humbling that many people show up to a conference call, especially when we haven't had the pleasure to meet yet. The topic today is about an inventory. You know, we take a lot of inventories in this business. We take an inventory on our new cars, and we look for age units and opportunities, and we discover some problems sometimes. And we look at our used car inventory, of course, and over the many years, I've been in the car business more than 25 years now, and, you know, it used to be that we had cars that had birthday cakes, you know, had a one-year birthday for being around the lot. And the old theory was, you know, you'll find a butt for every seat, so just hang on to it, it's a good car. Well, times have changed, and we've changed that thinking. We now manage our used car inventories like it's a portfolio. So we treat that inventory with more importance and more urgency than we ever have. And it pays dividends for almost all dealers. We take our parts inventory annually for most dealers, and some do it monthly or quarterly, but at minimum annually. We want to see, because that's an asset, that's cash. We want to see how we stand versus what we've spent. And some of those parts have to be depreciated, and some are sold short, because we're trying to manage that asset to the best of our ability. Now, that's a long-standing good business practice in this industry. Used cars, as I said, has become a much better inventory practice than it ever has been. New cars has become better than it ever has been. We take inventories of our shop supplies, of our office supplies. And when they need to be adjusted, we adjust them. And we examine those expenses. Again, because it's cash, and we have become, in the past 25, 30 years, we have transitioned as an industry. We've moved from the business of moving metal to the business of making money. So we run our business like a business today, more than we ever have. And yet the inventory that I want to talk about today is one that most dealerships really struggle with. And that's a two-leveled inventory. The first part of the inventory that we need to take, that we sometimes don't take, is a full inventory of our processes. Now, a lot of dealers will take a partial inventory because something is glaringly wrong. Your CSI, some portion of it is, you know, your delivery process, for instance. It's what I'm doing in a store in New York today. That's a problem for you. So you want to correct that. Well, those are little tiny partial inventories. You wouldn't count 10% of your parts. You wouldn't inventory 10% of your used cars or new cars. You wouldn't do that because it wouldn't make business sense. But we do this with our processes all the time. We tend to take that inventory in bits and pieces. Try to have the discipline to set aside the time to take a full inventory of your processes by department. Write them down on a lined sheet of paper, right? Parts and service and sales and F&I and your inventory management, your building maintenance. Write those things and write what processes you can identify that are in place, who's responsible for them, how frequently they're done, and probably most importantly, how effectively you think they're being done. And last, try and find the origination date of when that process started. It's amazing how many places I go into, and I do understand this because I have lived in this industry my whole adult life, but it's amazing to me that I walk into so many dealerships and I ask, well, how long has it been this way? And they just kind of give me the glazed over look, and they say, well, it's always been that way. Been that way for a long time. That'll never change. Why not? I don't know. It's just I've been here 11 years. It's always been that way. That's not a good reason. You wouldn't have poor accounting practices in place for 10 years because you did it that way to start. You'd adjust them. So take a full inventory of your processes. And the last part of the inventory that I'm advising you to take is take a full inventory once you're done looking at your processes, because that's going to give you a lot of insight that maybe you don't have right now when you stand back and look at it. One of my lines is I tell people, go out and walk around your building once and come back in like you've never seen it before. You'd be amazed at the things you see. It will probably annoy you, so be careful. But I want you to take a second part of that. When you're done with a full, thorough inventory, I want you to then make an inventory of your entire staff. Everybody. Because if we're going to inventory used cars and parts and new cars, we're going to inventory those things because they're assets. And we want a return on the investment of our money. We want a return on those assets. Only makes good business sense. Well, our people are probably our biggest asset. And they're also the most expensive one. And yet the top expense that most dealers have is personnel, and they spend the least amount of time as an inventory process looking at that asset. So, you don't hire greatness. How many times have all of us hired the guy that came down the street and said, oh, I was at so-and-so doing 26 cars across town, and we're like, he's in. Well, 26 was if you added up his 2 best months, and 3 months later he's doing 7 and annoying everyone in your sales department. We've all made the mistake. How many times have we interviewed an A-Tech and hired him on the spot because we're so excited because an A-Tech level guy came in and applied for a job? Oh, it's my lucky day. Only to find out not only are his skills not great, but his attitude is terrible. And that's why he's on his 4th dealership in 6 years. We should kind of learn to ask the question when someone says, I have experience. Great. Is it good experience? Because they don't have experience in your organization. They may not fit. So when you're doing your inventory, take a look at every person you have. Write every person's name down. And this is really difficult for a lot of dealerships to do. Write every person's name down. Meet with the managers of the department. Tell me about Bill. Tell me about Ted. Well, he's been here 12 years. He's a good guy. Okay. What was the last brand new task that we've assigned him? What's the last new thing that he learned? When was the last time we provided him any training? When was the last time we sat down one-on-one with him and asked him how he's doing? What hopes and dreams he's got for the future? It's funny, we can set goals from the top down pretty easily, but the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. So when you're doing that inventory and you're looking at each individual person and you start to add up their potential, that should give you a guidepost as to where you're headed as an organization. If you do a full inventory of all your technicians and it's done properly and thoroughly and you examine how many hours they're turning now, how many hours you believe as a manager they're capable of turning, or as an owner or as a GM, and then more importantly, you sit with them and ask them what their goal is, what's in their way of achieving that kind of productivity. Because if give or take $100 an hour, I really want those guys to have whatever obstacles are in their way cleared, because that's an awful lot of money. And I'm not managing that asset correctly if I'm not helping it grow. So I would do that with service. And then when I look at the sales department, and this really gets interesting because I meet with 10 guys, I ask them how many units apiece they're doing. I factually do the inventory first. I don't tell them I know exactly how many units they're doing. I just ask them. More often than not, those numbers don't match. And sometimes when I ask a sales manager, a general manager, or a dealer, how many units does Joe do a month, they tell me, oh, he's a good guy, 12-car guy. No, he's actually 9.4. That's 2.6 units at $2,000 a piece. Well, pretty soon we're off $5,200 a month in gross. $60,000+ for the year. That's on one guy. Because that's how out of touch we are with taking that inventory. We're not accurate any longer. When I sit down with Joe, I can ask him, how many cars a month are you doing? And if he tells me 10, okay, well, it's 9.2. That's almost a full unit off. That's 11 for the year. At 2,000, let's call it 22,000 that we're off just by what we've convinced ourselves. So then I ask how many he thinks he's capable of and what help does he need to get there. When you add up those 10 people's goals and what they believe their ability is, you typically will come up with a number far greater than what your goal is for the department. Because let's face it, what do we base those goals on? We base them on inventory. Last month's inventory, what did we do last month? What did we do last year, same month? What's our best gut guess tell us? So we end up being market-driven. We're not management-driven. If we're going to be management-driven, that means being in touch with your people every day. Again, you don't sometimes look at your used car inventory. You're looking at it every day. You don't sometimes look at your dock. You look at it every day because those are your assets. So today, more than anything, I just wanted to stress, if you take the time to take a two-part inventory, first, list every department. Again, every process that you can identify, who's responsible, how well is it being run, and when was it started. And if you look at your people and you write down everybody, everybody. If you have a lot attendant, put his name down. If he's been here 3 years, he's probably much more knowledgeable about your business, obviously, than he was 3 years ago. If there are other things that he could share some responsibility in, if someone takes the time to give that person a one-on-one, do you know what you get? A better attitude and better performance. Everybody wants to be appreciated and recognized. So with that, if there are any questions at all anyone has, I'd be more than happy to take those. Mike, if you would help me by opening up the lines.
Yes, they are completely open right now.
All right. Okay, Mike. Well, if I don't have any questions today, I am all set. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to sit in and listen. I appreciate the opportunity. It's an honor just to be able to speak to you. So I hope that you all have a great day, and I will look forward to talking to you in the near future. Thank you, Michael.
No problem.